Welcome back. When we last left off, I had just located a hollow hill dungeon and was getting ready to try and turn it into a farm so that I could source an exquisite diamond from one of the mobs that rarely spawns there. My goal, first and foremost, is to be able to filter out only the mobs I want to kill. I will have to manually kill mobs for this farm to drop the items that I need, and there is no sense wasting weapon durability on creepers. To help with that, I whipped together a way of measuring mobs' hitboxes. This is basically just a giant measuring stick that shoves them into a funnel made of microblocks until they get stuck. Since each layer of microblock plate takes up an additional 2 pixels of a full block, and each block is 16 pixels, this measuring tool will be accurate to the nearest eighth of a block, which should hopefully be enough to allow me to separate out everything that I want. The results are as follows. Fire beetles are between 16 to 18 pixels wide and 12 to 14 pixels tall. Slime beetles are a little oddly shaped. They're actually 28 to 30 pixels tall, but only 14 to 16 wide. Red caps are 22 to 24 pixels tall and 14 to 16 pixels wide. Red cap sappers are exactly the same size as regular red caps. Swarm spiders are 8 to 10 pixels tall and 14 to 16 wide, which is about the same as a vanilla cave spider, even though their model is smaller, so the more you know. And finally, kobolds are 16 to 18 pixels tall and 12 to 14 pixels wide. My first mob farm design in my test world allows me to exploit these dimension differences to filter out only mobs that match the exact dimensions of a red cap. It will tend to leak smaller mobs into the red cap collector if it bogs down, so that's a simple fix I will have to implement with the real one. And I am somewhat worried that special mobs might clog it up, but it is good enough. It only has to get me 1 flawless diamond after all, so how long could that really take? Before anything super interesting can happen, though, I have to collect some building materials. A solid 98% of the farm can just be made out of solid cobblestone, but I will need some orthomic relocators. Rather than burn through my wand reserves crafting them, I opt to use my old mob farm's Vis Orb production flux to recharge them. It has so much mob throughput at this point that recharging using the mob farm would be faster than a node. Once those are done, I jam my bags full of goodies and go up to the mob farm to pull out all of its relocators. No sense crafting a whole new set, after all, it isn't like the thing's going to be running when I'm in another dimension. And then, after a refreshing jog across the emptiness of the void, I end up back at my Hollow Hill farm. The nice thing about the Twilight Forest is that it is almost always bright enough to prevent mob spawning in direct light, so the holes I popped into the farm earlier will keep it from turning into a heaving mess. Since I actually have more relocators than I used in my creative test build, I opt to go for a slightly different design and make an 11 by 19 platform initially, centered as close as possible to the middle of the chunk. The platform gets a roof, walls, access bridges, and some weirdly shaped holes that I will eventually fill with stuff to let me filter mobs out. The one large slit facing my bridge to the farm will filter out all the mobs that are shorter than red caps, so any spiders, fire beetles, and kobolds that spawn here ought to be mostly removed before they get to the second part. Because I don't really want to deal with piles of monsters on my only way back to the base, I put a cover and wall over it, which also serves to block daylight from entering the farm. The secondary filter goes on the mob output side. Once I get my microblocks in, this will let me filter out all mobs that are taller than red caps, feed the mobs into a final filter to get any shorter mobs that might have been mixed in, and then send the remainder down to a collection area for further processing. At this point, the shape of the farm is mostly finished, I just need to slab it up. If I want to filter everything shorter than a red cap, which is at least 22 pixels tall, my first and third filters will need 5 panels stacked on top of one another to lower their height such that red caps can't escape, because 32 minus 10 is 22. If I want to filter anything taller than a red cap, I will need 4 panels, or 1 slab, on the second to allow red caps through. This installation process is going great until I forget where my relocators are blowing and shoot myself off into the void. Hold, please. Right. That wasn't annoying to get to at all. It's fine though, I needed to be down here anyway, so I totally meant to do that, for sure. That little oopsie's out of the way, and I get back to cleaning up the filters. From my experience trying to get my items back, I know I will want to finish the mob chute and access tunnel before I turn the farm on, so I relight the area before getting to work on that. The collection area is nothing special, it's just a chute where I can see monsters and they can't see me, built with an access tunnel that keeps them from ganking me while I go to the collection area. It's pretty much just a vanilla design, because if it ain't broke, I see no reason to fix it. Naturally, I ran out of cobblestone during this process. After a nice 3-minute tour through the endless expanse of the admittedly pretty scenery, I fill my bags and get back to work. I assemble myself a tube to guide the mobs into the chamber, which I affectionately call my scoot chute as a callback to the other farm's loot chute, and then detorch and relocator the farm. I almost have another incident and lose a relocator to the void, but a little bit of quick reaction time managed to catch it at the absolute last second, and the process otherwise goes off without a hitch. It might not look like the farm is dark enough, but I checked with a light overlay and it should be good to go. I don't know if the light you see is just a visual glitch or if the Twilight Forest really is just that unreasonably bright in unlit areas. And now, the moment of truth. Does it do the thing? Yes. Yes, it does. And I am now surrounded in treasures. Very painful treasures. Why the heck am I taking damage? It is not suffocation damage, so why? Oh. I was holding a lava bucket. For the record, I do have gloves equipped. This is just an excellent example of a really terrible mechanic implemented in a really lazy way. If nothing else, at least it's an excuse to get my steps in. And resupply on lava, I guess, because apparently the mob filter isn't quite cutting it when it comes to removing all of the stuff I don't want. I attribute this almost exclusively to the amount of mobs that it is processing. After crawling my way back up to the farm, I grab my stuff and start going to town, only to be grabbed by a pinch beetle and killed almost instantly. Again. This thing is not working to filter mobs at all. So, I think I know what the issue is now. It isn't that the system isn't filtering mobs, it's just that it's spawning them in the filter itself. I go up, light the filtering area, and improve the collection area a bit. I make a couple of modifications to the mob intake to make it impossible for pinch and fire beetles to get in from the main platform, and if nothing else, the pinch beetle fiasco should be over and dealt with. And it works perfectly. The fall height is enough to kill all non-infernal regular redcaps, but the sappers have more HP. The lighting of the filter seems to have completely fixed the wrong mob problem, and I'm left with a slowly accumulating pile of exactly the mob I want and nothing else. It's perfect. I modify the killing platform a bit so that I can actually pick up all the drops and get to work. Even when I get my exquisite diamond, I'm not done, though. Remember when I said I had a second problem that needed to be solved? Yeah, that hasn't gone away, and its solution is going to take a healthy collection of diamonds to resolve. I decide to raise the collection platform a bit to capitalize on the red cap spawns as well. Is what I was going to say. The sappers aren't named that for no reason, and before I can put that plan to action, one of them starts blowing up the collection area. I decide to cut my losses, grab the relocators, and then head back home. I can get more diamonds from other sources, and I probably have enough already. There is no need to get too greedy. Goodbye, Hollow Hill Farm. See you never. Unless I need a mountain of other stuff later on, I guess. After a quick detour to reassemble my original mob farm, everything is back working as normal. It's like I never left, if you ignore the backpack full of goodies that I have on. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. We need green sapphires, and the only way to get them is with industrial craft scrap boxes. I will leave the proof of this as an exercise to the viewer. Scrap boxes are basically the industrial craft version of a loot bag. When you open them, you get a random item. Sapphires, of the green variety, have a 0.02% chance of dropping. So I need to open, on average, 5,000 scrap boxes to get one. I need 9 green sapphires, which is 45,000 scrap boxes, or roughly 26 chests worth. But wait, there's more. Scrap boxes cost 9 scrap to make. Scrap is made by taking basically any item, common mob drops is the only exception to this rule that we care about, and putting it in a recycler. The recycler, at the cost of 2 seconds and a trickle of power, will have a 1 in 8 chance of outputting a single blob of scrap. So, let's do some math. 45,000 scrap boxes will require 405,000 scrap, which will in turn require roughly 3.2 million non-common mob drop items to be processed, demanding a whopping 1,800 recycler hours of work, assuming entirely uninterrupted processing. Even if I had everything ready to go right now, this means that it would take a stack of LV recyclers 28 hours to process a single green sapphire block. Yeah, we aren't going to be going anywhere for a little bit. It gets worse, though. Do you have any idea how much stuff 3.2 million items actually translates to? That is 1,852 chests of 64 stacked items, or a cube of these chests, 12 blocks on each side. I could literally break down every single block in my base to recycle, and it wouldn't even get me over the starting line. Anyway, baby steps. I don't need all those items at once. What I really need is just to be able to supply 32 junk items per second, which is at least well within the realm of possibility. It is, however, going to require much better item logistics. Ender.io offers some extremely strong item logistics options and is unlocked in MV. Let's get working on some of those. The first step is getting pulsating iron. That only requires stuff I already have lying around and a whopping 2 minutes in the EDF per ingot. Thankfully, I won't need that much of it, right? A stack of recyclers needs more steel than I have access to right now, but I do have enough to start making all the microcrafts for it. A zombie came in and killed a few of my villagers earlier, but I still have enough to purchase and disassemble the circuits that I need from them as well. Steel, as always, is just a matter of time. I can rely on the mob farm to produce all that I need for that. The machine casings will need a couple of stacks of wrought iron, and I have no intention of wasting polyethylene on them, so into the smelter they go. Those machines will also need a bunch of wires. Into the mill they go. And now, with our power production thoroughly throttling, what am I going to do? Why, craft all of the other things I need, of course. There are a ton of ways of getting around the recycler's restrictions on not wanting to recycle common items. But I don't really care. I have a better way of making a ridiculous amount of junk. Remember my good friend, the Thirsty Tank? Remember my even better friend, the LV liquid auto-crafting system that I'm using in the mob farm to turn liquid XP into valuable materials? With those two powers combined, I can design a system that produces a jaw-dropping amount of Pam's Harvestcraft water, and that recycles just fine. The first step is making the tanks and glyphs, which need an MV laser engraver. That sucker needs a red lens to engrave arcane stone into arcane stone bricks, which needs my good friend the MV lathe, a machine that apparently needs only a flawless diamond to make rather than the exquisite diamond I remember it requiring. Hilariously, this means my whole adventure in the Twilight Forest was pointless since I can get one of those as a Steam Age quest reward. I wonder if they changed that specifically so that challenge runs like this would be possible. It would not be the first thing they added for that exact purpose. The tanks are easy to make. They're designed to be crafted in LB, so with a little bit of crucible massaging, wand charging, and flailing around aimlessly on a crafting bench, those are working in short order. Ethanol production and glyphs require brewing stands, which need Thaumcraft research to make. I get that research done, do some more flailing, and make a few brewing stands for use later on. My lens is also done lathing at this point, so I pause the extruder and get started on the arcane stone brick. In addition to needing it for my tanks, I also want to get alchemy and infusion running, and those two techs will need them as well. This has the fun side effect of pausing every other machine on my grid because it drains all of the power in my base. Yay! I will wait to finish these at a later point. My charcoal barrel is also full. Want to know how I know? Because when I go to get some glistering melon from the mob farm, I'm engulfed in a neon green seizure ball of experience. It is definitely time to swap that puppy out. Gregtech. The only mod where your entire technological progression arc is stalled, waiting on a drug lab some random dude set up on the floor next to your boiler closet. I would really appreciate it if zombies would stop magically appearing next to my villagers and then murdering them. I don't really need them anymore, but they're nice to have, you know? I need more steel than the mob farm can reliably produce. I could just wait, but that takes time and I don't want to. Instead, I retrofit the XP autocrafter to make wrought iron dust. This, along with oxygen, will let me produce a prodigious amount of steel very quickly, provided that I can supply oxygen in bulk. Spoilers, I can. At this point, most of my basic processing is done and I'm just waiting on steel. My steel production has actually never been that good. It's just been steady and free, which let me build up enough of a surplus over time to make it look way better than it actually is. It's time for something completely different. Infusion. If you don't know how Thaumcraft Infusion and its stability mechanic works, don't worry about it. The Cliff Notes version is that I just need to make a multi-block thingy over a literal mountain of skulls, and I will never need to worry about it again. Movie magic, can I have some help, please? Thanks, Movie Magic, you're the greatest. I'm also gonna make this thing's top bright neon green, because it isn't ugly enough as it is. Now I just need the altar to put on top of it. A little bit of crafting, a little bit of being perpetually confused as to how to make this thing, and then just like that, infusion. It's useless for now, seeing as I have no alchemy processing to speak of, but this thing is going to very quickly become a mainstay of my technology base. With that random process out of the way, let's get ethanol production sorted out. Ethanol is pretty simple, and the setup I decide on requires 1 fluid extractor, 3 brewing machines, and a distillery, 1 amp of LV power, and a whole bunch of random automation junk that is cheap and irrelevant. All of these parts combined give me all I need to slam together into a basic setup that will take pretty much any fruit item and turn them into sweet, sweet, lovely ethanol. A judicious application of bone meal later, and the system slowly will begin to spin up and pipe out alcoholism. This thing will take all of my cantaloupes, juice them to fill a buffer full of fruit juice, and then render the rest down with that juice into magical biosludge type 43, which will itself be distilled into ethanol. Other fun news, I need thaumium, and a lot of it. Rather than doing this the normal way and carefully making a small amount to make the tools for more efficient production, I take another route. Want to know what happens when you plug a crucible and it tries to overflow? Nothing. Since there's nowhere for the flux to escape, it just gets voided and disappears over time. As long as you're willing to accept relatively minor essential losses, this is one way to bypass the crucible's capacity limit entirely. I do this with all of my Terrawort and walk away with a small mountain of thaumium and a flux bomb slowly simmering in my basement. As long as I don't break the crucible, it will slowly diffuse itself and everything will be fine. Since I am still waiting on my disassembler to finish making my circuits, I decide I need some more MV machines, and make a chemical reactor, a second electrolyzer, an assembler, and a fluid extractor. Apparently they removed the disassembler in a later version, by the way, so I am really glad that I'm playing a few versions behind. That thing has saved me so much annoying microcraft. Other crafting projects include mufflers, no more shall the stupid machine noises drive me spare, looking at you, Macerator and Forgehammer, and tanks, because I am sick and tired of not having any kind of fluid storage. And a bunch of other stuff that I will need for my recycling system. And, at long last, the most crucial piece of the project, the recyclers. All 64 of them. Because when have I let reason or good sense stop me from pursuing technological apotheosis? All of that junk gets wired up to a single 4-amp line of LV, which is precisely enough power to supply all recyclers at full speed, and then plugged into 4 combustion generators. My item conduits aren't quite ready yet, but I can get started on a junk producer without them. All it is, basically, is a way to funnel a huge amount of water into a couple tanks that will then bucket it up and convert it over. 6 thirsty glyphs on each side of 2 tanks will result in a truly idiotic amount of water production that will oversupply any pump that I can make at this stage by a considerable margin. Once my item conduits start being produced, I wire it up and cram it full of buckets. As is typical with projects like this, I then have to spend 20 minutes tweaking it before it works the way I want it to, but it does eventually cooperate. The real question here is, what is this thing's output speed? I need 32 items a second to fully supply all of my recyclers, and I eyeball it and estimate that this produces around 8. So pretty soon I will need to add another 3 layers of autocrafters. My water bucket production is already through the roof, but the crafting speed is fairly limiting. I could feed in mob farm products that are compatible, but that takes more work than is worth, and I am uninterested in doing all of the item logistics for it. Amusingly enough, both scrap and scrap boxes are a pure source of strontium, which is the Thaumcraft essence of stupidity. That seems deeply fitting. And with a little bit more processing, I have this. 64 recyclers recycling water into a very, very, very tiny amount of green sapphire. These will take about a real-life day to process enough scrap for a block of sapphire, and there is now nothing to do but wait and feed it with biodiesel. So, now what? Well, now whatever I want. I am going exactly nowhere, tier-wise, until I get my lenses, so I am free to expand, upgrade, research, and pick my nose as much as I please. As it so happens, the what ends up being finally installing a trash bin on the mob farm. Now, instead of turning into a laggy deathball, excess items will be harmlessly voided. This was actually such a huge problem that I expect that this upgrade will improve the frame rate enough to substantially increase the speed of the recyclers. It was that bad. Now that I have a glut of free time, I start getting rid of the XP berry farm. We simply do not need XP anymore, period. That problem is solved, and I want the space available for other things. I want to get started on alchemy, the real kind, not the janky kind that I have been doing with a cauldron, to enable some pretty excellent resource production options. I want to blast my way through Thaumcraft, because there are some excellent utility options available to me that I simply haven't unlocked yet. I want to complete as much of my quest book as I can, just for my own peace of mind, so I make sure I haven't forgotten anything, and I want to clean my base up. I am still rocking structures I made using corpse dirt, and it is well past the point where I should be doing some cleanup. Finally, I want to get started on bees. As a resource production option, bees are pretty terrible for now. They are slow to produce, unbelievably slow to breed, and are such a nightmare to manage in even regular forestry that the Modpack authors of Gregtech New Horizons didn't really need to change anything about them. They do, however, offer unique resource production options, an absolutely idiotic amount of utility in certain situations, and, if you know what you are doing, you can use them to crack the foundations of reality itself, provided that you have a few weeks of free time. That will obviously not be happening for a while. Before all that, though, a fun bit of trivia. One of the items scrap boxes drop is a filled tin can, something you should normally only have access to in HV. These are a massively superior food source. They never suffer the effects of overconsumption, and 3 of them can restore your saturation to full. I will absolutely be switching to these once I get more of them. First things first, though, I want better tools. I could make thaumium ones and enchant them, but Tinker's tools are probably a better solution. I decided to go with ones made of cobalt. It is by far the best material I have, and is easy to duplicate using a crucible. Between that and some casts, I'm soon sporting a wide assortment of cobalt tools. Normally I would make Damascus steel, but I have no manganese production options right now, so that is out. My pickaxe is also Perdido-headed. I want me some mining speed, and I don't really care about its mining tier or durability at all. I also decide to take a crack at some more scrap boxes. In addition to sapphires and tin cans, they also drop other useful stuff, such as diodes, netherrack, soul sand, and samples of gems and dusts I otherwise wouldn't have access to for a bit. Right now, of course, I only want sapphires and tin cans, but I end up walking away with none of the former and 11 of the latter. Compared to what I was doing before, my new tools tear through the farms I was taking down. This was so worth my time, it is not even funny. And in no time at all, that is so much better. But wait, there's more. I want all of this mess cleaned up too. This is space I can expand into later. A lucky scrap box nets me my first sapphire. 1/9 of the way there. Next on the chopping block is my old creeper detonation platform. Bye-bye! And then the first water creeper hole. All those memories. Nah, nostalgia's for the weak. Those times kinda sucked. I now have a backpack. Fancy. Whatever. Alchemy time now. The first step is making many tubes, and those tubes can be... You know what? Never mind. Crafting happens, and this is the final result. I expect to move a fair bit of this around as I decide on automated procedures and whatnot, but for the moment it will do just fine. My first project? Salus Mundus. How much? Yes. This will take a little bit. In the meantime, it's time to burn down my scrapbox supply a bit. My first round of opening nets me another sapphire. Score. My second round gives me nothing useful, but I am still well on pace. 2 sapphires for what has been about 2 barrels of scrap boxes is actually a pretty reliably good return. After my Salus Mundus is finished duplicating, I take a moment to use some litmus paper on my brain. The results are unsurprising. I've only completed a small handful of warping researches, so most of the warp right now is normal, and is probably from the 2 wand contracts that I bled through. My next Thaumcraft project is making a small mountain of aluminum. I could use the EBF, yes, but it's gonna be busy with a huge order of dark steel until the foreseeable future, and I need something to do with my time. For the low price of all of my iron reserves and more bat fuzz than a police office full of vampires, I will be able to net myself a healthy pile of aluminum ingots. For the amount of micromanagement that requires, it ends up probably not really being worth it, but 10-ish stacks of aluminum is nothing to sneeze at. The steam turbines need replacement. While I'm at it, they also need upgrades. I'm tired of looking at rain barrels. My next loot bag rotation, scrap box rotation, nets me another sapphire on the first round. Nice. 1/3 of the way to go, and we are well ahead of projected schedule. The second round nets me nothing interesting. Oh well. For lack of anything better to do, I do more research. Again. Yippee! So fun. In other news, I'm almost halfway there, for green sapphires at least. I still need a block of all the other gems too, but green sapphire is the one that I really care about. I also learned something else new. Steam boilers can be muffled. I will now no longer have to tolerate the constant sound of hissing steam. Hallelujah. I am also nearly done with all of the available non-warping research in Thaumcraft. There is still a ton of research to do, since a good half of it is locked behind warp-inducing research, is warping research itself, or has scanning requirements I can't complete, but this marks a very substantial amount of progress through the mods. I have cherry-picked certain select warping researches that I know I want early access to, but I am otherwise about as sane and research complete as I am going to get for a goodly while. Now that I have access to basically everything ever in Thaumcraft, I'm going to want to monopolize my newfound power spike in a number of ways. Principal among them is the ability to enchant, over-enchant, and repair basically any non-Gregtech, non-Tinker's tool, armor, or durability-having and enchantable item in the game for pretty much nothing. Thank you, Osmotic Chanter, Overchanter, and Thaumic Restorer. Lighting, and mob spawn prevention, can be solved mostly through the power of arcane lamps, and auto-clicking in even moderately demanding situations can now be handled with dynamism tablets. Of course, All of those lovely toys need all sorts of lovely resources, so the first step will be securing sources of those. Rose gold for dynamism tablets and primal charm components is easy. Take copper, add gold, stick in blast furnace. Quartz for tablets and lamps is slightly more tricky, but I already have solved that problem on accident when I was first sourcing my lava supply. Mellow cones have a small amount of quartz in them, and I can use that with a Thaumcraft duplication recipe to get all the quartz I will ever need. Amber is unlocked by another alchemy research, and uses spruce saplings, which are easy, and the essence of slowness, which is very much not so. I can get it by melting down cones, but I don't have a good supply of those yet, so I will hold off on amber for now. Also, the results of the aluminum fabrication finally come in. We made a whopping 665 ingots, which is slightly over 10 stacks, and is not bad at all. Despite being stalled out in MV for at least a day by the sapphire problem, my tech progression options have actually opened up wide enough that even that delay might not be enough time to consolidate all of the things I need to start working on. In addition to the challenge of integrating about 20 mods' worth of random Thaumcraft, and keeping myself warp-free and sane while doing it, it is long past time that I started branching out. A staggering amount of powerful technology is outright dependent on having a bleeding-edge bee breeding program, and I currently have none whatsoever. Witchery has made itself available to us just now, though I have really no idea what this mod could offer that's useful with my current tech level. My impression was that it was basically useless until you hit HV, but I'm happy to be proven wrong there if anyone knows anything. All of these important projects are insignificant when compared to the burning need that I have to fix my builds, however. In addition to being a pre-Stone Age cobbled together mess, my machine shop is one bad mob spawn away from going up in flames. Case in point, most of my villagers were not disposed of by me. They died to the multiple zombie incursions that somehow made their way into the area. These projects will, however, have to wait until the next episode. Thank you for your time. All of the usual Make YouTube Like Me buttons are at your disposal in their usual locations if you find yourself inclined, and I hope you enjoyed.